Soul Calibur 6.
Soul Calibur uses a 4-button system, and notation is done via numpad notation. If you're not familiar with numpad notation, there's a guide on screen to let you know how it works. Basically, imagine that you're on the player 1 side, the left, and your stick is a numpad. 5 is neutral, 2 is down, 8 is up, 6 is forwards, 4 is back, etc. Numpad notation always assumes that you're on the player 1 side, so keep that in mind. Soul Calibur's 4 buttons are A, B, K, and G. A is for your horizontals, which are good for tracking movement. B is for your verticals, which are usually good for damage and reach. K is for kicks, which are generally fast, safe pokes. G is for guard. There is both a standing and a crouching guard. Unlike other games, you cannot hold 4 or 1 to block, you must use G. You'll get used to it. Including the neutral inputs, there are many similarities in characters' movesets that can be helpful when experimenting across the roster. I'll list a few for convenience's sake. 5A and 5K are generally safe, fast, high attacks. Likewise, 2A is usually a short-ranged, fast poke that can be used to safely interrupt or check your opponent. 3B, much like Tekken's down forward 2 or hop kick, is generally your character's launcher. 3K is usually a mid-poke kick with decent range and frame data. 2K is usually a low poke with decent reach. Finally, 1K is usually a low kick from standing. Keep in mind that there may be more commonalities in the moveset across the roster than just these. Also keep in mind that these aren't necessarily universal, but they're common enough to be noticeable. Beyond the regular 4 buttons, there are also what are known as dual button attacks or simultaneous press. The notation for pressing 2 buttons at the same time is indicated by a plus. For example, AB means to press A, then B. A plus B means to press A and B at the same time. It's important that you're careful to make sure you're doing the right input, otherwise you'll be getting random moves all over the moveset and you'll have no idea what's going on. The first example of a simultaneous press move we'll be talking about is A plus B. A plus B is used across the entire roster for your character's key break attack. We'll get into what break attacks are and what they do later. B plus K is most commonly used for stances in most characters. With both A plus B and B plus K, pressing different directions in conjunction with the combination of buttons will result in different moves. A plus B plus K, all attack buttons at once, is your button for meter usage. This is how you use your critical edge, soul charge, and soul attack. We'll get into those later. Similar to 2D games, A plus G is your input for throws, or grabs. B plus G is the universal input for reversal edge, a high-risk, high-reward defensive option. We'll get into that can of worms later. The next 2 combination inputs are less commonly used, but I'm putting them in just for clarity's sake. G plus K is the taunt input. The only character in the game who has a mechanical reason to taunt is Tira. For everyone else, it's for fun or fake-outs. A plus K is widely unused by most of the cast. The only exceptions are Valdo and Yoshimitsu. Some characters have training mode only inputs tied to A plus K to help with character-specific mechanics or bypassing difficult lethal hit conditions. We'll get to those later. If you're playing on pad, I recommend binding shortcut buttons in order to aid with ease of inputting. Personally, I use L1 for A plus B, L2 for B plus G, R1 for B plus K, and R2 for A plus B plus K. You can put these on whatever buttons you want, but I recommend using these shortcuts, not specifically these input bindings, but these shortcuts for ease of access. Now we've covered all of the basic single button press, nothing special inputs. Now we'll be taking a look at the more advanced state-based inputs. Full crouch, or FC moves, are done from a crouching state, generally while holding one of the down-facing inputs to remain crouching. An example of this is Tira's FC3A. While rising moves, or WR, are done while shifting from a crouching to a standing state. Double tap or hold inputs require that you either double tap or hold a movement input in order to get the right move. This spans 1-1, 2-2, 3-3, 4-4, 6-6, 7-7, 8-8, and 9-9. Unlike Tekken, there is no special while running input. There's only the double tap and hold type input. Slide inputs are a rare and strange type of input where you slide your finger between different buttons to input the move. In the move list, slide inputs are indicated by a smaller input symbol followed by a bigger one. Likewise, in text notation, they are indicated by a lowercase letter immediately followed by an uppercase letter. One of the most iconic examples of a slide input is Siegfried and Nightmare's Quick Neck Buster, AGA. If we input it slowly, like shown here, you can look closely and see that it's an A being feinted with guard, and then the follow-up A then becomes its own unique move, the Quick Neck Buster. If you input it fast enough, it'll bypass the feint animation and just go straight into its own move. And if you're fast enough to input it perfectly, you'll get what's known as the fastest input version, or the just version. Just inputs are perfectly executed inputs, indicated by a bright white flash. If you're familiar with the electric wind god fist from Tekken, it's kinda like that. Generally, there are two different categories of just inputs. The first is a fastest input, where you execute an input as fast or frame perfectly as possible. An example of this is Nightmare's AGA. The other example of a just input is a rhythmic input, where follow-up inputs need to be timed in a specific manner in order to get the appropriate follow-up. An example of this is Tira's Gloomy Stance 4BBB. Just inputs often reward you with higher damage, different move properties, and different combo opportunities. In the move list, just versions of moves will be indicated by, in brackets, fast, or in brackets, exact timing. In text, just inputs are indicated by a colon, for example, Nightmare's A:(G:(A), AGA for short, or Tira's GS 4B:(B:)B. As far as inputs and notation go, that's pretty much it. The next video will cover movement and specifics about attacks.